The various islands of Jurassic Park are just not very good to be at. And this is due to the fact that they're just so prehistoric in nature that people like us, we would not be able to survive there. Whether it's the island of Site A, B, the Biosyn Sanctuary, to even the new Rebirth Island from the film that comes out around this week, this is just not a very good place to be at. So with that being said, let's put another character who draws from a land that's prehistoric as well, being King Kong. Which Kong? Well, I was thinking the original Kong from the OG film. As you guys know how I think an 05 Kong would do against any of the major theropods from Jurassic Park. So going over that would be pretty repetitive, but hey, I like the 33 film better, and I happen to know that this Kong is a lot stronger than the one from the 05 film. A sentiment that at first glance might seem pretty unbelievable, but trust me, we'll get into that. But let's try to stay on topic. How would the 33 Kong deal with the threats proposed on a composite Jurassic world, where he has to deal with apex predators such as the Spinosaurus, T-Rex, and Giganotosaurus? And seeing as how this is a comp Jurassic World island, it's gonna have threats such as the Endom and yes, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. So would Kong thrive in this environment and feel right at home? Or would he fall victim to some of these super predators? If topics like this sound interesting to you, then hey, be sure to stick around. But before that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I think it's a goal that we can realistically hit by the end of the year. So if you're really new here, I challenge you to subscribe to the channel. This could be your first video. Consider it kind of like a pitch or something. So if you like it, then stick around. But if you don't, then feel free to unsubscribe. It's free after all. Obviously, we've been doing the like goals. And how about 200 likes for today's video? And if we hit it within the hour, I'll drop a short today as well. Consider it sort of a double upload. But with the self-shielding out the way, let's get into the topic that you clicked the video to find out. Kong is a lot different from his 05 self, if I'm being honest, and he's a lot more downplayed than him, unfortunately. Which is pretty weird because he's around 2 times as large, standing at around 50 feet tall canonically. And yes, I know the full model that you see in the film is made in scale with an 18 to 20 foot tall ape, but this seems to be a Showa Ghidorah situation where the tech at the time really limited how they could present the size of the kaiju canonically, as too many things out of universes blatantly state that Kong 33 is a 50 foot tall ape. And hey, if the sentiment really bothers you, the creator of the actual character envisioned him to be around that range of height as well. And if you want to use the in model stuff that we see in the film, the face bust as well as the hand animatronic are made in scale with a 40 to even 70 foot tall ape respectively. So just try to remember that everything out of universe just states Kong is around this tall. But with that being said, let's head on over to his feats, and really he has 2 showings from the film that we can use to get a baseline for his attack potency, with both instances drawing from the climax of the original film, in which he's able to snap out of chrome steel chains, which would mean that simply by snagging his hand hard enough, he can generate energy equivalent to over 45 million joules, which is energy equivalent to what would be required to destroy some small buildings. This level of power is consistent, as in the next scene he's able to bend a 50-foot metal door like cardboard, which is a showing that's comparable to over 500 million joules. So that would place Kong in the small building level ranges of attack potency. And remember, he gets this just by snagging his hand and bending things. One thing that is also interesting on top of this is the fact that Kong performed these feats after being imprisoned for weeks. It's about a throwaway line in the original as well as in the book, but yeah. Kong was in prison for around a couple of weeks. Keep in mind, this is literally a 50-foot tall, 18-ton ape that would literally need over 1,000 pounds of food a day just to stay in his calorie maintenance. That's a lot of food, and they likely did not have that present on the SS Venture. We don't know how long the ship ride was, but according to the ship's route as well as the approximate location of Skull Island-esque, environments, and it's been generally accepted that the ship took around 40 days to make its way back to New York City, meaning that more than likely Kong was starved and presumably malnourished while performing these very casual small building level feats. So I don't think that having him just cap at small building would be very, indicative of his actual true strength. So I got him at around small building to building level right now, just using the films. But how about a prime Kong that's not malnourished and has all the space that he needs just to survive? How strong would he be? And well, we do have some type of gauge to actually quantify how strong a prime Kong would be. Starting with some statements, Kong 33 is officially stated to be about as strong as 200,000 Indian elephants, a statement that's honestly pretty blatant. Elephants are probably the strongest modern land animal right now, and they beat anything you can think of that isn't like a whale or dinosaur. So yeah, they're so powerful that they're used to demolish houses in some countries. And for a general gauge of attack potency, however, elephants by just running release 125,000 joules in their tackles. So taking that extremely conservative value and multiplying it by 200,000, and Kong would find himself being able to exert energy comparable to 5.98 tons of TNT, which is a level of power that us power scalers would classify to be in the large building level. But a statement, while official, isn't never going to be as good as an actual feat. And well, don't worry, as using the comic book adaptation of the original film and book, it added an extra little tidbit, as when Kong beats his chest like a gorilla, he's able to cause the entirety of Skull Island to shake and tremble, with the comic making it visually apparent that it's literally being, shaken to some degree. The narrators state that, it's trembling for miles at an end. We see that, people are just not steady just by standing on the lands when he's like moving. So Kong is powerful enough to cause mini contained earthquakes that could be felt for miles. So when calculating the size of the island as seen earlier in the comic, it's been determined that Kong is able to shake comparable to like a Mag 4 to even as high as a 4.9 earthquake, which would equate to C-block levels of attack potency. So at best, Kong, using media and lore relating to this continuity, would find himself anywhere between large building level to even C-block level plus. And before we go over speed, yes, I'm going to talk about the planes, and honestly, it's a pretty big elephant in the room. I already brought up how Kong was likely malnourished during this instance, but ignoring that, let's dive into what the official media says for this particular scene. For starters, you have 6 planes that are stated to have been running low on ammo and ammunition by the time Kong actually died. Keep in mind, these models of planes can unironically hold hundreds of rounds, so that's a lot of bullets pretty much. For things that are consistent with this mindset, we have like verbatim thousands of bullets that were entered inside of him, and it's stated that cumulatively all of that put together created a mortal wound that led to Kong just dying of blood loss rather than like a bullet. So Kong being large building the C-block level isn't contradicted by the climax of the film, where he's likely malnourished and pumped up with thousands of bullets, all in order to create a wound that led to blood loss. So yeah, that doesn't really contradict the line of scaling that I presented. So I don't want to hear anyone say that he's a glass cannon or he's bullet level or anything insane like that. So with that being said, let's move on to some of the other things that Kong has going for himself. Starting with Kong's speed, and at a lowest end, the average gorilla is able to run at 20 to 25 miles in short bursts. But seeing as how Kong is literally massive in comparison, I don't think it's that hard to say that he would be in those superhuman speed ranges. Like, the bigger you are, the more distance you cover. And it's also shown in the film that he's able to run. And according to the Versus Wiki, he's moving at around 187 meters per second when trying to save Anne from the meat eater here. So that's literally subsonic that he gets in the film. This is also consistent with the fact that he's able to catch planes out of the sky, which are also likely flying at those subsonic speeds. As for his battle experience in the film, it's shown that he's able to fight flying creatures, sea creatures, and even just basic theropods. He's apparently good at martial arts, according to some statements. And seeing as how some people care about this type of stuff, the meat eater that Kong is able to physically wrestle with is around 30 tons in weight. So to put that number in comparison, the D-Rex is around 26 tons-ish. So yeah, just keep that in mind when we talk about the next part here. Before we talk about how each realm of dinosaur compares to Kong in terms of physicals, I want to establish if this environment is even suitable for Kong to live in to begin with. And I mean, yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Gorillas are pretty much considered to be vegetarians for the most part, and a calm Jurassic Park island would theoretically have enough stuff to, sustain whole sauropods. So I think in terms of like just eating, Kong should be fine. So yeah, with, his diet covered, let's dive into how he would compare to the island's fauna. And firstly, Kong doesn't have to worry about most of the herbivores, generally speaking, if you leave them alone. It's shown that, they'll leave you alone too. And plus, Kong lived on an island with a killer freaking sauropod. That thing was like a man-eater carnivore, and he was able to thrive in an island like that. So I'm pretty confident when I say that all of the herbivores and non-aggressive dinosaurs should for the most part be okay, as I don't see a real reason why Kong would want to fight any of them. So yeah, moving on to the mini guys, like primarily groups of raptors, and well, would Kong be on the food chain? And honestly, I don't think so. While they do kind of scale to the big apex predators, it's nothing more than just scratching them and stuff like that. More consistently, these guys are around like wall level. They're shown to be able to, take out wolves and most general animals. And we have characters such as Blue who can contend with raptors that possess skin so durable that bullets literally just bounce off of this stuff. So yeah, wall level is pretty safe for the raptor packs, and I mean, unless it's like 100 raptors, I don't see them taking out Kong. Generally speaking, they are only in groups of like 4 to like 6 or something like that. And we saw how Rexy was able to handle them. Not gonna spoil if Rexy is stronger or weaker than Kong just yet, but just in terms of size and weight, Kong is a lot heavier and a lot taller than Rexy, so I don't see him having any issues with average packs of raptors. And I can kind of say the exact same thing for the medium-sized theropods, such as the Allosaurus and the Carno. In terms of feats, those guys only really have small building to building level showings. So in terms of AP, they scale roughly to like Kong just moving his arms or casually crushing doors. So, you know, when you have dinosaurs whose best AP is something that Kong can replicate with like a simple motion, it's not really comparable either. Kong is just gonna break those guys' jaws easier than he did the meat eater in his original film, which, fun fact, is 30 tons in terms of weight and 50 feet tall as well. So yeah, they're not going to give him any challenges unless, like, once again, every dinosaur that's in this like tier decides to jump him, which is just not very realistic. So with that being said, we can actually move on to some of the big boys that make up the top tiers of this comp Jurassic Island. And well, a lot of the large building calcs I've used sort of got debunked, unfortunately. Like, they're only around building level, but there's still a decent way to get these characters into those large building ranges still. And it still comes to us from Buck for the most part. And while yes, this initial like bus crushing pulverizing feat doesn't get into those large building ranges anymore, it still gets pretty deep into building level. It's almost 1 ton of TNT. So basically you take that initial value that you get from this feat here and you multiply it by 10, and that would scale to any of the major big boy theropods in the verse. Sounds pretty insane, but why is this the case? And well, in Jurassic World, Owen has a gun that is specifically made to take down Tyrannosaurus Rexes. And when shot with this same gun, pretty much the Endom barely flinches. Like, it's like stings to her at most. And then you have Rexy, who in a malnourished state, mind you, is able to penetrate the hind of this same Endom, tackle her through buildings and such. So obviously then you'd have characters such as the Giganotosaurus, Spinosaurus, who's confirmed relative to her, and possibly even the D-Rex, who would scale to that level of power. And the times 10 multiplier comes from the fact that no-selling something is pretty much the same as being able to one-shot due to like Newton's third law. So yeah, pretty much Endom and all the major theropods would upscale this bus feat 10 times over for all the reasons that I just mentioned, meaning that the upper echelons of the theropods would actually find themselves to be in those large building ranges. Oh, and Owen's gun being able to take down a T-Rex isn't contradicted by the fact that Rexy's able to beat up an Endom that, you know, this gun couldn't really hurt, because Rexy is just simply way above other T-Rexes as shown in Dominion. So it's a Rex that's just built different, to be honest. And as for the speed of these theropods, it's nothing too impressive, as for the most part the entire verse, you know, is carried by the raptors as they're the fastest, and Rexy can tackle them and contend with them and such. All of the theropods are shown to be able to smack them around, so speed is pretty much comparable in this verse, from the fastest to the biggest. And while the Raptors are confirmed to run at verbatim 35 miles an hour to even as high as 60 miles an hour, there is one type of meta that gets them to 105 miles per hour, and it comes to us based on if you think Owen was, you know, riding his motorcycle at max speed here, as the Raptors were shown to be comparable to it. So the dinosaurs in this verse would cap anywhere between superhuman speed to even subsonic. But going back to comparing these stats to Kong, and well, it's deeper into large building than Kong gets via his elephant statement, but it doesn't compare to, you know, the casual earthquakes that he's able to generate just by banging his chest. So if you think Kong's scaling caps at that elephant statement, then all the theropods would be stronger than Kong, but they would be slower than him too, due to some of the stuff that we've already talked about with Kong. But if you grant Kong his official canon comic book adaptation scaling, then he would still be stronger than all of the theropods on the island. Even the mighty D-Rex probably wouldn't have anything comparable to Kong. So is that it? Does Kong just live the rest of his days uncontested in peace? And well, not exactly. I think there's one thing in this environment that would pose a serious threat to Kong's life. That being the Mosasaurus, as that thing is simply just gigantic and it's fighting in the middle of the ocean at this point. So, you know, for the simple fact that
in water, chimps will drown.
So combined with that factor and the Mosasaurus having like Spinosaurus minions at this point, I don't think he's going to last that long in a fight against that thing. But I mean, in terms of just the land itself, Kong should be fine. He fares a lot better than his 05 self. You know, check this video out if you want to see how he do it just against Rexy. But in terms of the OG, he's dealt with far worse and far stronger. So I think for the most part, Kong has like a 90 or 89% chance of just living the rest of his days out here, with that 10% coming from just a Mosasaurus alone. So to answer the question proposed in this video, I think that it's more than likely that Kong would be able to survive and thrive in a comp Jurassic World situation. Unless like multiple large groups of theropods decide to jump him, he should be fine. He has millions of years of experience, and ironically, he's no stranger to using battle tactics. And if you want to take the canon of the established sequel, then his species is actually capable of language. Like, you know how MV can just do sign language? Nah. The OG can apparently talk, or at least the species can. So yeah, with that being said, Kong is strong enough, fast enough, and smart enough to not only survive, but to thrive on any Jurassic type of environment that you can think of. So yeah, Kong should be good. But with that being said, how did you feel about this week's video? It was a pretty good video and I had fun making it. So yeah, don't forget to like go if you want to see a short from me today as well. But as always, I'll see you guys next week with another video. But until then, stay big G fans.